listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. This is our Dolphins Talk matchup show. Week 1 is here of the NFL season. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined by Robert Burns. Robert, how you doing today?
I'm good. For those who can't watch the stream, I forgot to plug in my computer. So hence I'm back on camera now. And surprise, back on camera, back for another season. Mike, our second season of doing the matchup show. I feel a little more hopeful this year than I did going into last year, but I had some pretty bold predictions that came true. Some didn't. And I don't know if you listen and follow along with our Bold and Bull segment, but let's give them a rundown as we go through the show for first-time listeners of the matchup show on how Bold versus Bull will run later on today, because that's kind of the basis of this show. Yeah, we talk about the matchups, but then we have some fun with it later on. So, Mike and I will go over some matchups this year. We're excited about these. Then we'll go into some bold predictions, or if they're just complete bold. Then we'll go into some stone cold locks. So without further ado, Mike, let's let you run the show and start off with probably one of our great sponsors.
Yes, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, your Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest, and I got a cough already. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market for your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for the overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they will ship to you internationally as well if you're not in the United States. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. All right, Robert, before we start with all the news and the matchups, it's week 1. What are your expectations for this Miami Dolphins team heading into the season? I predicted them to go 10-7 wild card team. Kind of what's your big picture season prediction heading into week 1?
I feel more optimistic, like I teased in the intro here. I feel like as long, and this has the big caveat of as long as health can stay relatively normal to NFL standards. I don't think that happened last year for this Dolphins team, or for that Dolphins team, rather. They just had too many injuries that they couldn't overcome. Every team has injuries. We get that. And that's a part of playing the game. And that's a part of going through now 17 weeks of football that means something. But I think that as long as they stay relatively healthy, I have higher hopes. And I think that the way the chips are going to fall, this may be the year for the Dolphins to actually win the division, get into the playoff. I don't think they're going to have the 1 seed. I don't think they're going to have the 2 seed. But I think they're going to be able to win the AFC East. I think they're going to be able to get a home game, win the home game. And that, to me, is going to be the success from the trajectory of 3 years with Mike McDaniel, a new regime, locking in everyone. Anything more than that, that is just the topper on the tree for me. But that's what I can envision this Dolphins team going. They have, I don't want to say more talent, Mike. I think they have a little bit more depth. They have more players, not necessarily so top heavy that we talked about every week last week. Whereas if one guy's hurt, I got to swing my vote to the other side of the matchup scheme here. I think this year there's a little bit more depth for us to look at as we go through the line, and we'll talk about that week by week. But that's what my envision for the Dolphins this year. I think the chips are going to fall where the Bills may have lost enough to where they take a step back. I think it takes it to the point where the Jets may be a little overhyped. I think they'll be fine, but I don't see them as the juggernauts that a lot of people, especially National and Mike Greenberg and everybody else, think that they can be. And we know the Patriots are just a dumpster fire over in the corner waiting for snow at this point. So with those 4 teams, I think the Dolphins can squeak through and maybe get 10 to 11 wins, probably 11, and get that AFC East title for the first time in a while.
Let's hope so. It's been too long since 2008 since they've won it, and it'd be nice to actually have a home playoff game for once. And
It
maybe
also
try
makes
to
it more
advance.
fun for us to talk about, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure does. As much as we're fans, we're excited for the new season. You want to see the team win. It's also been a long, long time since they've won a playoff game, since they won the AFC East. And as fans, like that's step one. I know people want to win the Super Bowl and stuff. Until we get past the Bills, shelve all the talk about Super Bowls. Until we were 2-13 against them in the last 15 matchups, and we'll talk about them next week. But until you get past them, I don't want to hear Super Bowl talk. And the first step is get past them, win the AFC whole playoff game, and then we can set our sights on the next phase of stuff. But yeah, it would be nice because it has been far, far too long. All right.
Yeah, I think in the AFC, I mean, big picture, I think Baltimore is going to have a hell of a year. And so that's why I don't see Miami as getting that number 1 seed. I think there's too much talent in the AFC where 11 wins, if you get the division, that's great. It's probably not going to be the
Well, here's something else too. Who's going to beat the Chiefs out west? It ain't Bo Nix. It ain't the Raiders, and it's not going to be the Chargers this year, at least. They won the Super Bowl last year having a down year, and they won 2 road playoff games. I mean, now if they're even remotely better this year in the regular season in a horrible division, good luck to the rest of the league, honestly.
And I don't want to discount a healthy Joe Burrow. As ugly as his hair may be, I don't want to discount a healthy Joe Burrow, a Jamar Chase who wants to show that he needs money, and a team like
and
that,
Higgins too,
and T Higgins that they have back this year, trying to show that hey, we weren't just 1-year wonders, because that's kind of all they were right now if you think about it. Burrow's hurt every year, you can't get back to that position. So if he stays healthy and that team can fly on, they lost Joe Mixon, I get that, but it may be addition by subtraction in that particular case. So I don't discount Cincinnati in this AFC cluster at the top either.
Yeah, and I think the most talented roster in the AFC, as you went sideways, for at least 52 players, is the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, they got the $1 million question at quarterback. Nobody knows, but for at least 1 through 52, that roster is as good as any team. And if they get anything out of the quarterback, just watch out, because they can run it down your throats, they can pass it, and they are no joke on defense. So that AFC North last year, the last place team won 9 games. Think about that. The last place team won 9 games. You don't see that often in any division. So yeah, the AFC's got a lot of good quarterbacks, got some young quarterbacks on the upswing. It's going to be something. But this week we got Miami, Jacksonville, Hard Rock Stadium. Let's start with the injuries. The big news is Jaylen Ramsey hasn't practiced this week. He missed practice Wednesday. He missed practice Thursday. Anthony Weaver at his press conference said he's hoping and praying. And with a game week 2 on a short week, he said we have to be cognizant of the fact that, if we rush him out there for week 1, then we might not have him week 2, because if his injury is not 100% and it gets worse. So if I had to bet a buck, it sounds like Ramsey ain't playing. Now, they might want to save him for week 2 because that game is more important. Or they might be like, you know what, with those 2 games so close, if you're not healthy next week, let's just wait till week 3 at this point. But I think this week versus Jacksonville, which is all I care about right now, I don't see him playing from how they're talking. I think he would have to practice Friday. If he's not practicing Friday, he ain't playing. And probably by the time most of you listen to this, you'll know that. We are recording this before Friday's practice, so we don't know. But that's the way it looks with Ramsey. Benito Jones sounds like he will play. He was limited on Thursday, so it sounds like Jones should be okay to go as a starting nose tackle. And Aaron Brewer gave some insight on his injury on Thursday, said his hand was broken and he's already had surgery. And he said he thinks he can go on Sunday, but it's also not his call, and the team might actually hold him out. So we'll see about Aaron Brewer, but his hand was broken and he did have surgery a month ago, and he says he's ready to go. We'll see if the team agrees, but Ramsey's the big story.
Yeah, I think at this point, I wouldn't count on Ramsey or say he's a need for this particular game. And Mike, I want to ask you, would you rather, what's the worst of the 2 situations? A conference loss to Jacksonville or a division loss at home to Buffalo? Division loss at home to Buffalo is the correct answer.
It means more, yes. Yeah.
If you had to have one or the other, I would rather have my top cornerback, my top defensive weapon on the field against Buffalo, even though there's no Stephon Diggs, I'd still rather have them out there to fight against Josh Allen in a divisional matchup, because this is your chance to beat them at home in 5 days. And so because it's a short week, I think that's why you're right. They're going to be cautious with them. And if they're already talking that they have contingency plans in place for this Jacksonville game, if he doesn't go, I'm going to take your buck. He's probably not going to play.
Yeah, it doesn't sound promising as of Thursday evening. We'll see what happens on Friday with the practice notes and the final injury report they put out. We'll see. But from everything right now, it does. I mean, when Anthony Weaver is saying "I'm praying," that's usually not a good sign. When your coordinator's saying "I'm praying," just saying, usually not a good sign. All right, let's go through these head-to-head matchups. Let's see if we agree, if we don't agree. As I said, I think these two teams are kind of even. I mean, they're not totally even, but they're not far apart either. This team won 9 games last year, Jacksonville. They finished 1 game out of first place. They won a playoff game 2 years ago. They got some talent here, sneaky talent on this team. Let's start quarterback Tua Lawrence. They both got paid this offseason. I think I know where you're going to go, and I probably agree, but I don't think it's by much, though.
Correct. Tua by a hair.
Yes.
And again, they both got their contracts. They both had off seasons that they want to remember. Trevor Lawrence had a season last year where he was injured, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, not what he wants to necessarily have. For him, the key is consistency. For Tua, he showed that he can do it. Now for him, the key is do it again for this season. He went to the Pro Bowl last year, had a wonderful year. He's got some, I don't know what voodoo magic was put on him, but he's got a confidence now I have never seen out of him before.
$230 million in your bank account. That's the confidence.
I mean, I guess that makes you the king that wears the crown. So he's in a different place. So with all that, and I think that Tua is slightly ahead of Trevor Lawrence, kind of like when they were at Alabama and Clemson. You know, there was a time Tua was slightly ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Then Tua left. Trevor Lawrence took over the scene. Lawrence had a heck of a win in that playoff game 2 years ago, but that was 2 years ago. So going into this season, he loses a weapon in one of his wide receivers, in Calvin Ridley. So, you know, for him, Trevor Lawrence, the key is going to be able to run around, move around the pocket. He's more mobile than Tua. That's where he has the edge on him. But overall, Tua has the slight edge as the better quarterback in this matchup.
I agree. Running back, again, I think the edge probably is Miami, but it's not huge. I think Jacksonville, again, sneaky good talent. Travis Etienne, Tank, Bigsby, and even their third-string running back, Dearness Johnson, who played a lot with the Browns the past year when Chubb went down. Those are 3 solid backs. Obviously, Miami, Mostert, Achane, Wilson, and Jaylen Wright. They got their talent there as well. What are your thoughts on the running backs?
Yeah, I think the depth on Miami helps them in this particular case. We were talking Raheem Mostert. You're talking Devon Achane, who we discovered last year. This year, they're hoping to discover Jaylen Wright. Whereas we know what Travis Etienne is. This is a guy where, and I'll talk about this later on when we get to the defense, you have to contain him because he is the key element to this entire game in my mind. You know, you can let Trevor Lawrence dink and duck, and you can let him try and get to Christian Kirk and the rest of the gang as much as you can. But Etienne is a threat in the backfield running. He is a threat out of the backfield receiving. So if you can bottle him up and make sure that he is somewhat contained, you're not going to, fully contain him, but he's going to get, 50 yards. I'd take the over. But if he doesn't blow out the game, he is that kind of player. So he's what brings Jacksonville up higher on that scale. They didn't run the ball a whole lot, Jacksonville, last year. If you look at the stats, I don't think they were ranked very high. Actually, I think they were.
They couldn't because they had a horrible offensive line. Really.
Yeah, lowest in the league as far as rushing attempts. And so when he gets his chances, he makes the most of it. With Miami, they're going to make the most out of that zone running scheme. They're going to go wide. I would say I don't know, but I would like to see them run inside more, and I think that's going to be a point of emphasis this year. But the depth of Miami is what gives them that edge. But you're right. It's not by a mile. It's probably by, a short football field.
And here's a fun fact about Travis Etienne. He was in the 2021 draft, the same draft as Waddle and Jalen Phillips. Chris Grier said after that draft that he was trying to trade back into round 1 to get a third pick in round 1 to select Travis Etienne. And he was very close to obtaining that pick. But Jacksonville, for people who might have forgot, took him surprisingly when they already had a running back on their team And once they made that move, Miami just stopped trying at that point because there's no one else they wanted at that point late in round one. So there was a very good chance that Travis Etienne was almost a member of the Miami Dolphins back in 2021. Chris Grier was very high on him. There's a fun fact some people might not have known. Wide receivers and tight ends, the pass catchers. Again, the edge is probably Miami because of Hill and Waddle, and they're so good. Jonnu Smith, this is his first real game, and I think they're going to use him creatively. He might even see a couple handoffs because they were running him on some certain plays in training camp and such. But Jacksonville's not awful. Christian Kirk is solid. Gabe Davis over from the Bills. He always finds a way to kill Miami. Brian Thomas Jr., a first-round pick. So I think Miami's got the edge, but I don't think it's a huge edge because I think Jacksonville's got some solid players there.
They do, and you missed out on Evan Ingram, the tight end for Jacksonville.
Evan Ingram, the tight end, yeah.
Who's the guy who can just kill you at any point in the game. And so I think this goes back to it's almost a cut and copy and paste of last year where Miami's so top heavy. It is Tyreek Hill. It is Jaylen Waddle. It is now going to be a Jonnu Smith where we can talk about tight ends this year. If Odell Beckham had been playing, a little wider of a gap, I think. As far as projected talent, again, we have to see what he has on the field, but I think that Christian Kirk is a solid wide receiver. He's not the number one pick in the NFL fantasy football draft kind of guy. Whereas Miami has two guys who you would probably take in the first round of your fantasy football draft. And so he's a fine wide receiver. You mentioned Gabe Davis coming from the Bills. And again, Evan Ingram, who was one of the top wide receiving tight ends in the league. But I think that you're right. Miami has that edge in wide receiver, and it would be wider if they had a full, healthy complement of their roster.
What scares me about that group for Jacksonville is if Ramsey does not play, it's got the speed to make big plays downfield. And if Ramsey's not out there, Ethan Bonner, Storm Duck, and those guys really have to bring their A game. Because if you're playing week 2 versus the Bills with no Ramsey, well, they don't got wide receivers. They got more tight ends who are going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. These guys got wide receivers who are going to hurt you. So that's going to make it interesting if he's not playing. Offensive line, look, this is no battle of champions. Jacksonville last year had one of the worst offensive lines in the league. We all know that Chris Grier might not be worried about the offensive line, but if you've watched any Miami Dolphins game the past 5, 6, 7 years, you're worried. I think both offensive lines stink at the end of the day. So even with Aaron Brewer at center, remember all training camp, he was having issues snapping the ball. So it's not there's some nervousness here on both sides of these lines. I would go push because I want to see more from each group. But, yeah, this is no battle of champions here on the line of scrimmage.
So for those who like to listen to Mike, he likes to say that people stink. But if they're really bad, do they stink on toast, Mike?
That's right.
Okay. So you're saying that they stink on toast. I'm actually going to say that they're a little bit better than you think they are. And for those watching, yes, Mike, I'm using my iPad, so my camera will shift back and forth, and I will become an alien for a second, and then I'll figure it out. But I'm gonna say that the matchups on the offensive line are a little bit closer than you think they are. It's still a push on my end, but Jacksonville has a guy, Brandon Scherf, was ranked one of the top 10 interior linemen in the entire NFL. Very good player. They also bring in a guy, Mitch Morse, familiar with the name because he's coming over also from Buffalo. So a guy who's very familiar with playing the Miami Dolphins. So they did bolster their offensive line a little bit. They are coming in fully healthy from what I'm understanding, from what they are projecting on their offensive line. Whereas Miami, you mentioned, we've got a center with a hand. We got Teron Armstead, who's healthy at
Uh-oh, we lose you? I think we lost Robert Burns, so I'm going to have to vamp here. Yeah, Jacksonville's O-line, I think, was the third worst in the NFL last season, and we all know what Miami's is there. We got Robert back. Here we are. Robert's back. All right, so yeah, I was just saying, Jacksonville actually took the approach of let's try to improve the offensive line after last year. Mm-hmm. Miami took the approach is the guys who failed last year, like Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, and Robert Jones, we're going to promote you. We're going to promote you. You're going to fail up. So Miami took the fail up approach. Jacksonville said, let's try to bring some people in to upgrade this. So it is two different philosophies when it comes to the offensive line.
For sure. But I think that, Miami is banking on continuity, and they're banking on having an offensive line coach that is there for a second year in a row. And they're banking on, the playbook settling in more and being able to get creative with them. So I think it's even. I think that in week 1, they both have tried their darndest to do what they can to patch it up. But I don't see either one of these offensive lines saying, hey, you guys are just going to knock everyone's socks off and push the defensive line back and pancake blocks all the way around. Probably not going to happen. So it's an even push on my end.
Yep, I agree. Let's go to the other side of the ball. The front seven. This is where it's interesting because you got Jaylen Phillips, probably only going to play 15 to 20 snaps. Calais Campbell said about a week ago he's only good at his age, just turned 38 a few days ago. He's only good for about 30 to 40 snaps a game. That's all season just because of his age. We know Chubb's out. Benito Jones might be less than 100%. So you got to factor that in here. If Miami's healthy, this is totally different. Factoring that in, I would think Jacksonville's got a slight edge on the front seven. They got Josh Hines-Allen now. He changed his name.
Yep.
Trayvon Walker had a big year last year.
Yep.
Eric Armstead. They got some players who can get after it. And with Miami's not being healthy and all these question marks, I'm going to give the edge to Jacksonville in the front seven.
Yeah, I'm going to give the edge to Jacksonville as well. You mentioned Josh Hines-Allen, 17 and a half sacks last year. Trayvon Walker, 10 sacks last year. Eric Armstead's made a career playing in San Francisco and making a name for himself and clogging up the middle. Miami's going to have trouble going anywhere running the ball on this team. Trying to protect Tua, you better get the ball out fast. Because Josh Hines-Allen, I'm glad we only have to do that once. Josh Hines-Allen is going to come after you. And so I think that because of the health factor, you're right. Jacksonville has the edge on that front seven, those edge rushers. I think we include linebackers in this one as well. So and I'm including and I'm including linebackers for Jacksonville as well. I mean, I love David Long. I think that Jordan Brooks could be maybe even better than what we had last year. And so Miami did make some upgrades in the linebacker spot, but Jacksonville's defensive front seven and that linebacking core, whether you're running or passing, they're going to be tough to get by. Secondary, on the other hand, may go a different way.
Yeah, and one real quick here, for those of you who might have missed my show earlier this week with Josh Moser from WSVN 7 in South Florida, keep an eye on Chop Robinson this week. It's his first game. He's a rookie, first-round pick, all that stuff. It's going to be an emotional day for Chop as his mom just had cancer surgery about like a week or so ago. He's been watching after her, and he's the youngest of all the people in his family, of his brothers and sisters, and it's going to be an emotional moment for him when he takes the field for his first real game and everything he's been going through off the field. So just a great guy, easy to root for. Obviously, as a first-round pick, he got all the pressure on him, all the expectations, but from a personal standpoint, this is really going to mean a lot to him on Sunday, playing in his first real game. So hope all the best to his family and his mom, of course, but Chop Robinson, it's going to be fun to see what he can do here, hopefully getting after the quarterback. I don't know if you'll see him on the field much versus the run. It's a little bit of a liability right now, as it is for most rookies. It's no big deal. But, his first step is so stinking good that you got to get him on the field on passing down, so he might make a play or two and surprise as well. Secondary. I think we have to factor in no Ramsey because that's the way it's leaning. So let's factor this in with no Ramsey. You got Kendall Fuller, who gave up 9 touchdowns last year with Miami. At safety, you got Holland, Jordan Poyer with a broken thumb. He's going to play through it. And Marcus May as well, who started 70. This is the first game Marcus May in his NFL career he's not going to start. He's got 77 starts. He's coming off the bench in Miami. You got those guys at safety. Then at the other side, it's going to be Ethan Bonner, Storm Duck, who would probably be filling in for Ramsey. And then Cater Kohu at the nickel. For Jacksonville, you got Ronald Darby at one corner. You got Andre Cisco, Syracuse guy, Antonio Johnson. So you got some talent there, but with no Ramsey, that does change things.
Yeah, I was going to be Miami until today. And so I think without Ramsey, I'm going to go push. Jacksonville didn't have a really good secondary to begin with. I think last year they were ranked 26th against the pass, and they lost players, a guy like Rayshon Jenkins. Like you mentioned, they do have some talent out there, but Miami's got some talent too. I think this is going to be one of those games where I think rushing yards may be tough to come by. Passing yards, you may see a 300-yard game on both sides of the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if when Jacksonville is out there, and you touched on Chop Robinson, if Jacksonville's out there, they see Chop Robinson out there, does Trevor Lawrence audible into a run play to that side to see how well he's going to be able to hold up that edge. I'd be surprised to see that as well. So with the secondary, going back to that point, it's going to be a push because of injuries again. And it's weird to think that we had a week off, a free bye week, and we still couldn't get fully healthy with the majority of our players. And now, fortunately, nothing is season long. Nothing is 5-6 games, 8 games. Nothing is Isaiah Wynn-ish at this point. And so we'll hopefully be able to get everyone back for that Buffalo game, which I think in some people's minds is the real week 1. This is like week 0 against Jacksonville in college football. The Bills game is really going to be week 1 because it's so close. And that may be something that we're seeing here, where a lot of these guys are being held out for this first week just to be able to have them on the following Thursday.
Yeah, part of it is the Miami Dolphins are now the oldest team in the league. I mean, it
Yeah.
just is what it is. They got old overnight, and you got someone like Ramsey who's going to be 30 next month. Odell Beckham's not a spring chicken, and he's had a long list of injuries. You got someone like Wynn who's always hurt to begin with. He's not even that old. He's just more injury prone. Jordan Poyer's got the thumb broken. He's an old. I mean, they got old overnight. So yeah, you're gonna see. Look, this team's always been injured the past handful of years. Now they're always injured and they're old. So that's why I think, to me, why I'm picking 10-7 wild card, because I think next year, when some of these older players who are here on 1-year deals they're going to move on from, not Ramsey, but some of these other guys, they're going to move on from, and then they're going to elevate the Patrick Pauls. They're going to elevate a Jaylen Wright and probably move on from Mostert. They're going to elevate some of these young guys into larger roles. That's when they're really going to make a Super Bowl run. 2025, 2026. This year, it's more about treading water because they had some salary cap issues, and they had to sign older guys on 1-year deals just to get by almost. So the age is a factor, not just this week for Dolphins, but all season, because they are the oldest team in the league. That's probably not a good thing to be, but it is what it is. Can't do nothing about it. Special teams, and again, for those who listened to this show last year, as long as Jake Bailey wears a uniform for the Dolphins, I cannot pick them to have an edge in special teams against anybody. Now, Jason Sanders improved last year. Had a big game, obviously, near Christmas against the Cowboys. God love him. He
had a good preseason.
Our long snapper, I don't want to say he lost us the Titans game because he didn't lose it, but the guy did get called for a personal foul penalty. How a long snapper ever gets called for a personal foul penalty, I have no idea. But Miami special teams have been a disaster for years. Danny Crossman's still employed. Don't ask me why. So I don't even know who the long snapper and who the punter and the place kicker is for Jacksonville. I have the names. I have no idea. But I'm giving them the edge.
I'm not giving Jacksonville the edge. Because I like Jason Sanders. And don't be so hard on our long snapper. What, Blake, was that what his name? Is his Blake Ferguson?
He's fine.
Yeah, I mean, he got fired for a day. Don't
He
give
did.
the guy a hard time.
He got fired for
He
a
got
day.
fired for a day. He got his
24
job
hours.
back. Yeah. So Jacksonville's starting a rookie kicker. And personally, I don't trust rookie kickers. They come out and it's a flip of the coin. Jason Sanders to me could be that edge. And I'm going to make a bold prediction, whether you ask me this question or not during Bold versus Bold. And I'll make it now, and we may cross this off. For the entire season, the Miami Dolphins special teams will give up less touchdowns than they did the year prior.
All right. I mean, to me, it's not even about the touchdowns being given up. It's more about just,
But I'll give you
the
big
shank
plays.
punts. It's more
I'm
about the
talking
shank
returns.
punts. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but to me, it's just the ho-hum plays over the course of a game that they screw up. When you just need a punt to pin a team deep, we shank it, and it's only a 15-yard punt. It's stuff like that it just makes you scratch your head like, how's this guy employed? But they say he's a good holder. Well, he can't be the only good holder in America. I mean, good God. So that's what it is. And also, I'm going to be very interested to see the return game this year with Miami, because of the new rules. You're going to see more returns.
Yeah.
Braxton Berrios, to me, seemed to step slow last year. He didn't seem like he had anything to him. I would not be shocked, at least on kickoffs, to see Achane or Jaylen Wright return kickoffs at some point. Punts are a little different because there's more to it. You got to use your noodle, and you got to make sure that you don't try to not fair catch it when you should be fair catching it and where you are on the field. But for kickoffs, I wouldn't be shocked at some point, even maybe this week, to see Achane or Jaylen Wright just to utilize their speed and get the ball in their hands. Because I don't see it with Braxton, but I know I'm in the minority.
Well, maybe that's something they look at Malik Washington for.
It could be Malik Washington, too. I don't want him on punts, though, because he scared the hell out of me in the preseason. Like, dude, it's okay to fair catch it. It's not against the rules. Let's go to coaching. You got Mike McDaniel. Just got the extension. Everyone's favorite person. But Doug Peterson also won a Super Bowl in Philly. So, and I like Doug Peterson. I think he's a pretty solid coach. I don't know why the Eagles got rid of him so quick after he won. It made no sense to me. But either way, you got two coaches who kind of know what they're doing over there. Mike McDaniel's more unproven, but he does know. He's got the players behind him. He's got the support of players. So, and he's been to the playoffs 2 years in a row, which for this organization is like climbing Mount Everest.
And then you got Ring of Honor at this point.
Pretty much at this point. And then you got Peterson, who has a Super Bowl under his belt. Where are you with the coaching? Who's got the edge?
My edge is going to be Peterson. He has a Super Bowl. He also has a playoff win more recently. And so I'm going to go with Doug Peterson in this matchup. I love Mike McDaniel. I think this is the year where I want to be able to see him get out of his own head. Get past that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, maybe 4th down and 1, and not necessarily throw those bubble screens so many times, and run it up the gut and trust that rushing game. I want to see if he can improve on his challenge procedure, because that's just been god awful to this point in his career. So he's got some ways to improve. But like I said, when you have a Super Bowl and a more recent playoff win with a Jags team that really wasn't that talented, they just beat a really good, high-powered San Diego team, or Chargers team, whatever they are, that year, that they didn't have as much talent as they should have, and they probably should have lost that game. They came back. So I think coaching-wise, I'm going to go with the old vet.
Yeah, I agree. I'd probably give him a slight edge, or at worst, it's a push. I don't think he can give Miami the edge, just for a few reasons. Like you said, he can't win the challenge. McDaniel, he even lost one in the preseason on a play that never should have been challenged.
Right.
Anytime Mike McDaniel throws that red flag on the field, view it as he's throwing a timeout away, because that's pretty much his percentage. I think he's won 2 ever, and the one he won last year was because his special teams coach screwed up, and he had to stop the refs. I'm like, no, we really didn't have too many men on the field. Our special teams coach is just a moron, and you thought we did. And so it's like, we only had 10. We didn't have 12. So it's like, we don't win challenges, and the whole process behind it blows my mind, that this guy went to Yale, can't figure out a process that works, or, and I know it's not him. He has someone in his ear telling him what to do. I hope they made a change to whoever that person is. If not, they're idiots. Okay. Before we get to Bold and Bull and the Stone Cold Lead Pipe Locks, I want to give a shout out to everyone watching and listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podbean, Podchaser, Audible, hit that subscribe button. We got shows each and every day of the week. We got live post-game show after the game. We have the Dolphins. We have Zach Krantz, 560 WQAM, doing a weekly spot. We got Josh Moser, WSVN 7, South Florida News. He does a weekly spot with us. You got myself, Ian, Tom Ernest, the same old Dolphin show, Marissa, Jason Sarney. You don't want to miss it. And, of course, me and Robert Burns, please. You don't want to miss an episode of any of our podcasts. So subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on any outlet you're listening to. All right, let's get to Bold and Bull. Now, I didn't check what your record was last year, but I know you were above 500 by a healthy margin. So this week, I'm not going to roll out with some super hard ones, because it's week 1. We got to ease into this here. So I got a 6-pack in each week. Bold is pretty much like yes, it will happen. Bull means no, that's not going to happen. Number 1, Tua will throw for more than 2 touchdowns this week.
Bold. Because I talked about it earlier. That's going to be where the openings are. It's going to be in that secondary. And with Tyreek saying he's healthy, with Jaylen Waddle saying he's healthy, I think they're going to look to really say, look, we can put up points still. We're not just going to put up 10 points, 7 points, or whatever it is that we did in January and December. So I think they're going to look to throw the ball. I think they're going to look to score a lot of points. And, I mean, I'm going to predict about 25 plus points for Miami Dolphins. And I'll take 2 of those touchdowns coming in the air.
Okay. The Miami Dolphins defense has 3 sacks or more.
Oh, the Dolphins defense has 3. I'm going to say Bull. I'm going to go Bull on that one. I think they're going to be working out a bunch of kinks. I think that if they do, it's probably going to come with some help from the linebackers on some blitzing schemes. I don't know how much, if I'm Jacksonville, my main priority is Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer. Let everyone else try and figure something out, because these are going to be guys on snap counts or rookies playing games here. So I think that Miami, if they get 3, it's going to be with linebacker help, but I'm not going to count on it. 2.5 is where I'll stop.
Okay. This is an interesting one because, and this is net yards per punt, not actual yardage. Jake Bailey has a punt over 45 yards. That's net. So if he kicks at 55 and it's right through the end zone, that's only a 35-yard punt. So Jake Bailey has a punt over 45 yards.
I gotta go. I'll go Bull until I see it, and then I'll trust it. And hopefully Miami doesn't have to punt that much, or that deep into their own territory where 45 yards is going to be able to help you pin the other team back. So I think they'll have better field position throughout the game, so he may not even have to hit something that far.
Tyreek Hill has over 110 yards receiving.
I mean, what did he have last week? 215 yards. So
Week one last year, he had some crazy number.
200 something yards and 2 touchdowns. Why not? Why not do it? I mean, I think last year I was listening to WQAM and they actually rattled off how many times he had over 100 yards last year versus how many times he didn't, and it was 8 to 7. He had the under, which still that's plenty. Where he had over 100 yards, and some of them he had 200. So give me the 100. I'll take the over. Give me the 110, whatever it was.
I just called it. Here's what we did the first half of last year. Week 1, 215. Week 2, only 40. Week 3, 157. Week 4, only 58. Then 181, 163, 88, 112, 62, 146, 102, 157. The 157 was really his last big game because then he got hurt versus the Titans, and he wasn't the same player that game. Jets game, he sat out. Then the end of the year, 99, 76, 82. But he came out of the gate with a 215, a 157, a 181, a 163, all before October 15th.
Yeah, and he can say he doesn't want 2,000 yards. That's fine. I don't think he needs to get it.
They're lying.
I don't think he wants it, but
he
needs to get it. I think this year he's going to be more conscious about the fact that I've got other help around me. I'm okay being a decoy in some cases. And I think that in this case against Jacksonville, he can be the man. When it comes against those tougher playoff opponents that they're going to face later on this year, he's going to be okay saying, I don't need to have 9 targets a game. It's okay. And so I think for this game, I'll take the over on that one. But if we're talking later on in the season in that murderer's row that they have to finish off the year, I don't think so.
I said this on the show I did Wednesday night here, our little roundtable show we did. I think the fact that they're saying we don't want it this year, watch them get it this year. Last year when they were trying, they tried too hard almost. Sometimes just don't try as hard. Watch them get it this year because they're just saying, no, we're not really trying. I still think they're trying. I don't believe them. But I could see him this year actually. I mean, he was at 17.99 last year, and if he didn't get hurt, he probably would have had it, honestly.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel will win a challenge this week.
Yes. Bold. Why the hell not? Week 1. I'll throw some free house money. This is one of those you're what is it? The bets where they give you the free bet in the beginning, first time you play?
It's your
no risk bet. This is my no risk bet. I'll take a flyer on Mike McDaniel.
It's your sign up bonus.
It's my sign up bonus. My bet 100 get 100 if I lose.
Yeah.
And so I'll take this one. I think he actually goes out there if he has to get one, he'll get it, and then I think I'll tack one on there. I think that the announcers will actually call out the fact that he was so bad last year, he actually won one.
There you go. Last one. The Miami Dolphins defense will create at least 2 turnovers.
I'm going to say bull on that one just because of all the injuries. I think if Jaylen Ramsey was healthy, thank you. I think Jalen Ramsey was healthy. If they had a full snap count of Jalen Phillips, I was getting my Jalen's mixed up, and they were both part of the answer. But I think if they were both healthy, they'd be able to get more pressure. They'd get some of those sacks or those pressure throws. But I don't know if Lawrence is going to be pressured that much. He may have to move around a little bit, but he may not have to get to that point where he's going to make him too many mistakes. And while week 1 is typically the time you're going to see a lot of turnovers because people are still getting the feel for the ball, that I don't know with ATN. He's a veteran player. These are all veteran guys. I don't know if they'll be able to get it with some of the players out there. And if Storm Duck can get an interception, yeah, bless him. We'll throw the memes out there and we'll put everything out on Storm Duck and
No, we lost.
Try to
lost
fill
him
it.
again. Oh, now you're back. Oh yeah, it'll be quack Storm Duck season.
Quack,
all right,
quack.
here's we wrap up. What's your prediction on the game? What's your score prediction?
Miami 27, Jacksonville 19.
Yep, I'm going 31-28 Miami. That's where I'm sort of settling in now. I've gone back and forth on this game, but that's where I'm going to settle in now as we head into the weekend. Stone cold lock and an upset for this week. I'll let you go first. Robert, who's your stone cold lead pipe? Are you with us still?
I'm here. Just when I'm on my, everyone knows I'm on my.
You're
iPad.
fine. You're fine. All right. Who's your stone cold lead pipe lock of the week?
I messaged it to you so I wouldn't forget. My lock is Houston over Indianapolis. Josh Richardson kid, I think he's fine, but this is essentially his rookie season. He redshirted last year for me. I know what I'm getting out of Houston. They have won in Indianapolis before, and I think they'll be able to do it again.
Yeah, it's a big number, but I think so little of one of the teams. I'm okay laying it. It's 8.5. Give me Cincinnati minus 8.5 at home over New England. I think New England, they should just be playing Drake May from the start. Let him take his lumps and just go. Mm-hmm. They have no weapons on offense. They got no running backs to put the fear of God in you. And I think, I think they got the right head coach. It's just going to take time. But they need another offseason at least. And they got a ton of money next year, too, to just get wide receivers who can play, running backs who can play. And I think Cincinnati will just come out at home and have a ho-hum, 10-point victory, 15-point victory, whatever. So give me Cincinnati laying 8.5 at home over New England because I think so little of New England right now. That's the one I'm going with. The upset special. Who's your upset?
I mean, come on. You may like them, but I don't have to like them. I think Dallas is going to beat Cleveland. I think Dallas is going to go into Cleveland. They're going to win week 1. Give me the points and the money line. They're going to come through and they're going to take week 1. I mean, look, they got CeeDee Lamb done. Dak Prescott's got something to prove now. Now, I don't think he's going to be at Dallas next year. He's got something to prove and he wants to make some money. So this is the time to go out there and show, look, I'm better than this Deshaun Watson guy, and I deserve more guaranteed money than you gave that fool.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick. I just think the Cowboys, Lamb missed all the camp, and they're significantly worse talent-wise from they were last year. They lost a lot of guys and didn't replace any of them. And plus, that's a hostile place to play, especially week 1. But it's not, look, Cleveland can lose at home just as much as anyone. That's a team, also like the Jets, black cloud over their head.
Yep.
Because everyone's sort of so down on the quarterback, and I don't know why. He played good last year. And it's a team that gets talked about a lot, but people just are, I think, too down on them. Give me Pittsburgh plus 3.5 over Atlanta. I think Pittsburgh's better than people think. I just think are they going to win the division? No. Are they going to make the playoffs? No. But again, last place won 9 games last year. Think about it. Last place, they won 9 games last year. Give me Pittsburgh plus 3.5. I think Atlanta's good, but it's week 1. It's in a dome. I think Pittsburgh's just going to hit them with some running game. Russell Wilson make a couple plays, and I can see Kirk Cousins just being a little bit rusty coming off his injury. I don't love Pittsburgh on the year, but I like him enough. Mike Tomlin never wins less than 8 games. They always say whatever. I think he'll win his 9 or 10 this year somehow, some way. Now the second half of their schedule, the only team with the worst second half of the schedule than Miami is Pittsburgh, but the first half isn't awful. I like Pittsburgh plus 3.5. If they don't win, I think they'll cover.
I would like Pittsburgh more if they were able to get the trigger pulled on that Brandon Ayuk deal. I don't know who the heck Russell Wilson's throwing to in Pittsburgh.
George Pickens is the main guy. Yeah, He's got the tight end, Pat Freiermuth.
So they'll get to their 8 wins because that's what Mike Tomlin does. They'll hand the ball to Najee
for 9
Harris
this year,
for 900 yards, and then they'll take their lumps and they'll roll through. I was actually going to pick Atlanta in that game, but I decided the Dallas game was a better pick.
I think Atlanta's going to be really good, actually. One, because they play in a god-awful division. It's brutally bad, that division. And I think Atlanta, with a real quarterback now, as I've been joking, Kirk Cousins won't be in Atlanta for a long time, but for the time he's there, it's going to be a good time. Because they're going to win in that bad division, and they will move on from him after this year. You can bank it. They didn't take that kid in round 1 not to play him. So I think he'll be there for a year, and I think they'll win a ton of regular season games. If you told me heading into the playoffs, Atlanta's a 1 seed or a 2 seed, not because they're the best team in the NFC, just because they got the easiest path to just rack up easy wins. Sure. And I could see them winning 12 or 13 games. San Francisco wins 10. Philadelphia wins 10. It's wait a minute, they're the 1 seed? Yeah, they're the 1 seed. Don't mean they're going to the Super Bowl, but they could be the 1 seed or a 2 seed for sure. So I think Atlanta's going to be good. I just like Pittsburgh this week. I got a funny feeling about Pittsburgh this year. I don't know. Not that they're great, but I think they're going to be sneaky good. So that's our first matchup show of the year. Now, next week, we got a Thursday night game, so we'll have to talk when we're going to record here. We either got to do it early Thursday, which I know is probably impossible, or we got to do it Wednesday night. We'll figure it out because week 2, Miami versus the Bills. But we both like Miami to win. Those are the matchups. Hopefully, Ramsey can go. It's just not looking promising. We'll see. As always, follow Robert Burns on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it this week, at Robert Burns TV. Follow myself at Dolphins Talk. Check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, subscribe. Also, Dolphins Talk Extra. If you want bonus shows, bonus content, private message board, go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And let's go Dolphins this Sunday, Robert.
Let's go.